Virtual reality is a game changer, and in more ways than one. It quite literally changes how we play video games, and it has more use cases to it than just the gaming industry. The sense of immersion you can get from it cannot really be explained, but that's not going to stop me from trying. I've had my eye on VR hardware since its early development, and up until recently, owning one of these fancy pieces of technology seemed like a pipe dream to me. I was lucky enough to get my hands on an Oculus Rift from a friend after he had upgraded to the Quest. And the experiences I've had with it since have been nothing short of amazing. Considering the massive upfront costs associated with it, and the fact that you have to be physically active to play, let's face it, most of us are tired, and some of us don't have this luxury. I don't think VR as a whole will overtake traditional seated gameplay, but considering how immersive the entire experience is, I do believe that it's here to stay. New games and new hardware are always in development, and this genre is still in its infancy, so it has a lot of room to grow. So, what exactly is VR, and how does it work? Well, let's start with the obvious. Instead of being seated, staring at a monitor, and using a mouse, keyboard, or controller, you're standing upright, with a head-mounted display strapped to your face. You have two controllers in each hand to control the various abilities available to you, and depending on your setup, you can walk around and explore your environment in a way that you can't do in traditional gameplay. There do exist games where seated gameplay is the focus, and those can be quite fun with friends.
Aye, new target locked.
Especially when both of you have absolutely no idea what you're doing.
And
Are you gonna fire?
and now the shooty part. Let's get out of here. Move.
Whoa!
Critical.
What have you done? Sir, impulse engines are
Didn't say to
offline.
do it from 20 kilometers away.
Sir, the bridge is on fire.
I think we were 3. The shields also weren't up for that. That's why she wasn't firing. I'm just like, get out of here. Here's a bodily blow up.
The sense of scale and immersion you get while playing in VR is something you can really only experience to understand. Now, I could sit here all day showing you clip after clip after clip, explaining how it all feels, but you'll only be able to fully understand that feeling by experiencing it for yourself. Words and video alone cannot do justice to the sheer sense of realness you get when you put on the headset. Being able to just stand in place and take in your environment. Everything is so much larger, it feels so much closer to you, and the need to physically move your head around to look cements your belief that you're actually in this location. I can really imagine myself strolling along London's riverbank, or enjoying a peaceful morning in Derbyshire, or hanging out in this guy's room. Something is wrong here. You get the sensation that you're actually in these places because you're able to move your head around to look, move your body around to walk, and the scale matches with what you're used to seeing when you roam around in real life, so it all feels very real. What a lovely view. I sure did pick a nice day to go for a drive. Look at this car. I'm glad I picked the Camaro. Seeing this all in VR, it's almost like I'm in the real thing. Whoa! I am in a real Camaro. Look at this thing. Gear shifter? Wheel? This is
Hey!
Ah.
Get the hell out of my car!
Okay, I think that's enough for one day. Hearing the birds chirp nearby. The wind howling through the air. The waves clapping against the rocks. All these sounds add to the whole experience, and it feels like you've been magically teleported to another part of the world. And it's amazing. Day 53. I'm still stranded on Mars. Not entirely sure how I got here, and I'm choosing to ignore the fact that I can still somehow breathe. Curiosity over there found a new friend a few days ago, and he's been ignoring me ever since. Someone pick up the damn phone, I want to go home. The Steam Workshop actually has a load of neat locales you can go visit, The English church, for example, was built by stitching about 450 photographs together to create a 3D space that you can walk around in. This photogrammetry recreation technology is super fascinating to me because it allows you to experience a lifelike view of what real-world locations look like without actually leaving your house. I'm a bit of a photography hobbyist myself, so learning about this technology has me excited to see what possibilities I could maybe come up with if I were to give this method a try. My favorite aspect of photography is actually shooting in outdoor natural environments. I love to take nice strolls along the beach or find some nice trails somewhere and capture the wildlife in action. I do want to eventually give this photogrammetry process a try and see what I can do with it. This technology can also be used to scan real-life objects to create photorealistic models of those objects. This brings me to another super cool feature of VR. You have the ability, if the game allows, to pick up almost anything you see and inspect it as closely as you want. You can take in every single tiny little detail the devs have put into their models. It's so much easier to appreciate the time and effort that goes into creating these models when they're mere inches away from your face. You can rotate them around, read the labels on the front and back, take in the painstakingly detailed scuffs and such, and manipulate them with your in-game hands just as you would if you were holding the item in real life. And yes, you can even pet headcrabs. To perform many of the actions needed to play a VR game, instead of using a device to control the character, your body becomes the controller. Many aspects of VR emulate real-life actions, so in order to achieve what you want to do in the game, you have to make the same physical movements you'd make in real life. See some shiny object on a nearby table? You have to physically extend your arm out to grab it. Drop your weapon by mistake? Well, you'd better bend those knees because that's what you gotta do to pick it up. Do that enough times and you'll start to realize just how far away the ground is. Why is it so far away? If you're playing an FPS, you have to raise your arms up and extend them outwards to aim your weapon. Not only that, but using both controllers to steady your grip helps with accuracy. There are no crosshairs at the middle of the screen, so you actually need to use the sights on the weapon to accurately line up your shots. Learning where the sights are and how to use them is key to hitting your targets. And then there's the magazine. Oh boy, needing to know where that is, how many bullets are in it, how to reload the gun, where your ammo pouch is, where the cocking handle is, and when to use the cocking handle. This is all done for you automatically in traditional games. You just press a key and watch an animation play out.
He's dead.
But here in VR, you need to do all of that yourself. It adds that extra level of interactability to what is normally a simple button press.
He's dead.
Needing to switch your focus from moving and shooting to reloading forces your attention away from your environment and into your immediate surroundings. You can't really multitask and think about your next steps because now you have to focus on properly reloading your gun so that it spits the bullets out when you really need it to.
He's dead.
All of this seems pretty obvious, but it's the little things like this that you wouldn't normally think about when picturing VR gameplay, until you're actually in VR and have to do those things yourself to play the game. You basically have to mimic the movements you'd make in real life, and that, combined with the visual immersion, makes for some exciting experiences. Having the screen so close to your face and seeing movement while your body isn't physically moving does take some time to get used to. The headset occupies most of your vision, if not all. So your brain is tricked into believing that it's in whatever location you see through the... I'm sorry. But when you start to move in-game, your brain registers visual movement, but then notices that your body isn't actually moving. And it gets just a wee bit upset about this. Nausea and dizziness are common symptoms until you can get acclimated to VR, and that can take some time, but you will eventually get used to it. Make sure to drink plenty of water and take as many breaks as you need. It's also helpful not to play when you're really tired or feeling drowsy. Now, I understand that everyone is different, so this might not work for you, but I found that for me, having a fan blow on me as I play reduced the amount of motion sickness I experienced because it helped me realign myself with the real world. It allowed me to reorient myself, as I knew which direction I was facing based on where the fan was blowing on me. I would also highly recommend that you start with the teleportation movement system. Make sure the game has that feature, as some games are smooth movement only. The latter allows for more player control and is more in tune with what gamers are used to, but it does mess with your brain quite a bit. It took me forever to finally get used to it. For the longest time, I could only ever use the teleport method, as any smooth movement whatsoever would immediately give me severe motion sickness, and I really don't like throwing up, so this just wasn't gonna work. I couldn't play some of my favorite simulators like Elite or Project Cars because all the constant movement just drove my brain insane. With enough time and patience, however, I did eventually get used to it. The post-VR sensation is also pretty strange, and it usually took anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour to disperse for me. It's kind of hard to put into words, but I'll do my best here. I felt weird for a bit, like I wasn't fully back in the real world. My brain was still thinking that it was in the VR world, and I would constantly get the feeling that I need to make all my VR movements to do regular real-life things. Physical items didn't seem like they were actually there. I felt like I couldn't reach out and touch them, even though I very much could. My brain would tell me that I have to use the controller to grab an object, even though I didn't have the controller in my hand. All I have to do is reach out and grab them, like I do in real life all the time. But it felt like I needed to use the controller to pick up those items. Screens and monitors felt really far away from me, even though they weren't. It felt like I needed the controller to interact with them, even though all I have to do is use my eyeballs. It's a surreal experience. Setting up VR hardware is a bit more complicated than simply plugging in a controller. Some headsets have the tracking built into them, while others, like the one I have, require external sensors to track your movements. My initial setup wasn't great, my space is limited, and the satellites were not in their optimal positions, so I did sometimes experience some janky tracking. Not only that, but my arms would also just randomly float away from me at times.
What are you doing?
My gun has decided to go over there, and I can't.
Oh, okay.
After realizing that I couldn't reach the floor to pick up items, I ended up repositioning the satellites and redoing the room scale process a few times to fine-tune the tracking. Picking up items off the floor is more important than you'd think. There's a surprising amount of times where you may need to bend down to pick something up. In my case, for example, I kept forgetting that I had to hold the grip button down to hold onto my gun, resulting in me continually dropping it on the floor, and also knives. This becomes a very serious problem in a game where your sole purpose is to use the very thing I just dropped on the floor, with no way of being able to pick it back up. I'd have to beg my friends to pick up the thing I had dropped and put it somewhere where I could reach it, say maybe a nearby table. It was pretty funny that I needed to do this, but it was a problem that I needed to solve to fully enjoy the experience. During the room setup, the Oculus software kept yelling at me saying that my satellites were too far away. But because I have literally nowhere else to put them, thankfully, it allows you to just continue on with the setup. I'm not entirely sure why it says I need the satellites closer together when they actually work perfectly fine this far apart. No, they're not as powerful as the Vive sensors, they're actually a little bit smaller and only USB powered, but they do still seem to get the job done just as well. The boundary system actually works really well, and I'm glad this feature exists. It keeps me from smashing into the various items in my room. I would recommend that you enable this feature if you can. In an extended play session, you can easily lose track of what direction you're facing if you're not actively thinking about that. The last thing you want to do is to smash your hand against a wall. Ouch. One of the first games I was recommended once I got my Rift was Pavlov. It's basically Counter-Strike in VR. I like Counter-Strike, and I like VR, so I figured why not? Coincidentally, just a few days later, Steam launched a VR-specific sale. So I thought, oh wow, what great timing, until wait a minute, I just spent full price on this. So I very quickly refunded my full price copy of Pavlov, and when that went through, I bought it again for the sale price. Hooray for savings! I also picked up Half-Life Alyx because, well, it's not like I had a choice. Oh, praise our mighty Lord Gaben. Pavlov is actually a lot of fun. It's smooth movement only, so that took some getting used to, but I really have a blast playing this. It can get quite a bit chaotic at times, and it has all the right pieces in place for the creation of some very nice campaigns. We don't have any campaigns yet, we just have deathmatch lobbies, but I'm really hoping to see some campaigns in this game. Figuring out how to reload all the weapons in this game was actually a pretty fun chore because I don't know how guns work. I actually had no idea that you only needed to pull the cocking handle if you were completely out of ammo. So I'd be sitting over here pulling the handle after every reload, not realizing that I was wasting one precious bullet. The Mac-10 actually won't even allow you to pull the handle if there's one in the chamber, so I was really confused by that at first. There would also be times that I'd forget to pull the handle and my gun would simply go click. And then my head would explode. Gun game was super fun to experience without any prior knowledge of what weapons were in the game, as it forced me to figure things out on the fly while enemies were attacking. So that was fun.
I wish we could do like no bots on our team and just have them all against us.
Well, don't you worry, Cam. Pavlov's got you covered. It features a zombie mode which acts much less like what you'd expect from a VR shooter. Well, at least I expected slow-moving zombies that slumber about, giving me time to peacefully reload as they slumber towards me. No, it's the Left 4 Dead kind of zombies. And boy is it scary.
Alright, let's chill here.
Oh shit, behind me! Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. Guys,
Oh gosh,
help.
oh gosh.
Guys, help.
Chris.
Guys, help me.
Help him! Help him!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I tell you, it is genuinely terrifying to turn around and see full human-sized zombies running towards you. It's a different experience than seeing this on a 2D screen. If you're used to gaming on a monitor, you're probably not bothered by enemies running and jumping at you. But in VR, it's much more intense. It feels way more personal because these life-sized humans are staring right at you, and they're just as tall as you. The need to make all the necessary physical movements quickly gets really stressful when you've got a horde of zombies capable of closing the distance in mere seconds. Most of these deathmatch maps weren't designed with this game mode in mind, so the zombies can come at you from all angles if you're not backed against a wall. I'd say a solid 80 to 90% of my time in this mode is spent keeping my head on a swivel, just making sure that one's not sneaking up around behind me, which they always somehow manage to do. This takes way more time and concentration than it does when you play on a 2D screen. It also takes a conscious effort to remember that you actually have to physically do these things instead of just pressing a button. In games like Left 4 Dead, you have mouse movements and keyboard presses to perform your actions, obviously, but this allows you to control the character much quicker than you can control your own body. This allows you to move at superhuman speeds, unless you're some sort of robot, I don't know. If there are enemies behind you, you can simply throw your mouse sharply to one side, whip all the way around in a matter of seconds, and shazam! No more zombies. But in VR, you have to turn your entire body around, bring your arms about, and raise them to aim. This takes just a little bit more time than throwing your mouse to one side quickly. Keeping a grip on your weapon so you don't drop it is also a good idea, which, again, I seem to have problems with. All in all, once you get the hang of things, it can be a massive load of fun. This game supports the Steam Workshop too, so there's lots of really fun maps to play on, from official maps featured in other games like Halo, to custom maps like this lovely indoor pool. Or the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Why are you weeing? Whoa! No reason. Don't worry about it.
Want to battle it out in downtown Bikini Bottom? Rare Shell 25's got you covered. The maps that come with Pavlov are nice, but it's the creativity and ingenuity of these community-made maps where Pavlov really shines. It brings me right back to the days of custom Counter-Strike maps like Westwood or the Rats collection. In fact, we were having so much fun doing all this that we actually decided to try our hand at building our own custom map. We brainstormed some concept ideas and sketched out some layouts, and eventually settled on something that both of us are excited to work on. It's a space station. You like space stations, right? Everyone likes space stations. The story behind this particular station is that it's rumored to hold some top secret documents about an even more top secret outpost somewhere. The owners of this top secret outpost have discovered that the station knows of its existence, so have decided to bust in and try to blow it up. The security forces stationed here have been tipped off on the attack though, so they're ready for a fight. Now, it's not finished yet, so what you're seeing is a work in progress. We're learning a lot during the creation process, and at times it isn't easy, but I'll let you know when the map is ready for human consumption. So with this newfound knowledge, I thought to myself, why don't I try porting over some of the Counter-Strike maps? So that's exactly what I did. I found a way to import the maps into Unreal, complete with all the textures and terrain geometry. It took a bit to get the scaling and lighting correct, but eventually I figured it out. Mostly. They're not perfect. I'm having a bit of trouble with the lighting. Dust looks mostly fine aside from these random bouts of outer darkness on some textures. And Chateau, it's giving me all sorts of problems. Problems as in the entire map is pitch black no matter what I try to do. So I'm leaving the lighting unbuilt on both these two maps for now, until I can get this figured out. But the good news is, the spawn points are in and the various game modes are functional. I'm still learning how to do all this, so these ports aren't perfect, but I'm actually having quite a bit of fun seeing them come to life like this in VR. I'm on a mighty quest now to bring in all the old Counter-Strike maps, because why not?
dead.
I don't see anyone else doing it, so hell, I might as well take the reins. My plan is to add in some neat lighting or extra detail here and there if I can to make them feel just a bit more alive, while maintaining the original atmospheres they represented. You can download Chateau and Dust over on my Steam Workshop page. I've added the link in the video description. Italy is the next map I'll be working on, so keep an eye out for that. And just in case this needs to be said, I obviously did not create these Counter-Strike maps. All credits go to their original creators, who I do cite in all of my workshop pages. My goals here are to simply port them over and make them playable in Counter-Strike VR. I mean Pavlov. Recording footage in VR is another thing that takes some troubleshooting to figure out. It's not as easy as just hitting record, and I kind of wish it was. But it's actually not too bad, so just bear with me for a second. I normally use NVIDIA's Shadowplay for capturing game footage, but when a game is in VR mode, the desktop view usually uses a cropped view of my non-dominant eye to show what the headset is seeing. This makes things look strange on the recording because it's not an accurate representation of what I see through the headset. This means that when I'm lining up shots with my left eye, the recording, showing the right eye, isn't seeing the reticle lineup. Some games like Half-Life Alyx also add a HUD to the desktop mirror, which you can't see through the headset, obviously. Luckily, however, you can turn that off in the settings, or use a different method, which is what I'm about to talk about. So what I did first to try to solve all these problems was to use SteamVR's desktop mirror. It allows you to select an uncropped view of what the headset sees, and even which eye you want the display to, display, but I can't use Shadowplay to capture this because it's not a game, so the program can't identify it unless I enable desktop recording and record my entire screen. But then I run into the problem of other windows getting in the way. I could just minimize them all before I start, but Windows has a nasty habit of bringing something up again without my consent, and if I have the headset on, I won't see it until it's too late. I could use two monitors, but I don't have two monitors right now. Also, sometimes when I'm using two monitors, Shadowplay will just record my second screen for whatever reason, so desktop view can sometimes be a little unreliable. So to bypass all of those headaches, I switched to window capture using OBS, and I can even control OBS through my headset without needing to take it off. So everything is great! Except it isn't. I was wondering why my footage looked choppy compared to what I was seeing through the HMD. So I did some digging and discovered that the SteamVR display mirror has a bug in versions older than 1.10.26, where the display will run at a much lower frame rate than whatever the headset runs at. So a lot of my initial recordings look like crap because even though my OBS settings were set to record at 60 FPS, it's recording what is effectively a screen running at about 30 FPS or lower. There appears to be a workaround to this, but the lengthy process of trying to downgrade to an earlier SteamVR build is just way too much work, and I don't have time for that. So, lucky for me, because I have the Rift, I've got one more trick up my sleeve. The Oculus Mirror app. And it works! Hooray! It's actually just as easy to set up as a Steam VR mirror, does the same thing, and might actually be a bit more useful because it comes with some additional options the Steam VR mirror doesn't have. I can allow the mirror to show in-headset stuff like the menu or the Guardian boundary system. I can specify which eye I want shown. I can even show both eyes at the same time if I so desire. I have no idea what this time warp option does, but it makes the sides of the screen go like this, so I just keep it turned off. I can stabilize the screen so it's not so shaky, however that does zoom in the shot a bit, so I usually leave that off. I have access to pre and post distortion. I don't know why I'd want to use these, but I'm glad that I have them as an option. But most importantly, I can record buttery smooth gameplay footage, as it doesn't lock the mirror's frame rate to any lower than what my headset outputs. I've got some ideas for future video projects I want to try utilizing this hardware, so I'll see where that goes and hopefully it'll amount to something cool. I know I'm being vague here, but that's because I don't really have any other details to share.
Excuse me.
It's entirely possible nothing comes of this, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Excuse yourself. I'm trying to bounce around.
At the end of the day, VR is here to stay. It'll continue to remain a niche product for a while until the price comes down a bit and more people are able to adopt it, but the technology is getting better with each new product that comes out, and the experiences you can get from it are unparalleled compared to traditional gameplay. Being able to fully immerse yourself in an entirely different world is just an excellent spectacle, and I hope that everyone who wants to experience it will get the opportunity to. For some, this may be the closest thing they could ever get to traveling the world and seeing all the beautiful sights this planet has to offer, and that alone makes this an investment worth pursuing.